This video is a no bullshit guide on how to get a V-taper physique, drawing on all 5 of my years of knowledge from lifting, from building a V-taper physique of my own, from building my own physique. So without any bullshit, let's get into it. First of all, some notes. This is achievable natty for anyone at any age, for anyone at any weight, and even for busy people with a very busy schedule. So if you are wondering, yes, this is achievable for you. It is achievable for anybody, all right? So whatever limiting beliefs or excuses you have, put that aside, don't worry about it. You can get a V-taper physique following the methods in this video if you put your mind to it, right? It's achievable for everyone. You only need to master 3 pillars in order to go through the aesthetic body transformation and achieve your V-taper, right? Those 3 pillars are shape, diet, and mindset, and all 3 are important. A mistake I see a lot of other YouTube videos talk about, or rather, a mistake I see in other YouTube videos talking about getting a V-taper physique, is that they teach the concepts in those videos well. They teach correct and good information, right? However, they don't end up teaching all 3 of these pillars. They normally talk about how to get, the V shape, or they talk about diet, dieting for an aesthetic physique, for a V-taper physique. Sometimes they talk about mindset, but very rarely do they talk about all 3. And the fact of the matter is you need all 3 in order to get a V-taper. And any video that does not talk about all 3, like I'm going to today, is not going to be good enough to get the viewer a V-taper, right? If you master all 3, you will achieve the physique. So I just want to put that out there as sort of a simple mental framework for you to wrap your head around. 3 pillars, and if you master all 3, over time you will achieve your physique. Anyone can. Number 1 is shape. Focus on the exercises that build the V-shape physique, right? So the V-shape physique is wider along the shoulders, so you have a wide shoulders, and you have a thinner waist. If you have a thin waist and wide shoulders, that contributes to the V shape for the physique, right? This is where big but unattractive guys go wrong. So have you ever heard of guys that say, I started going to the gym, for girls, but now I just get compliments from guys, right? Or girls don't even care about muscles that much because they have a big physique, but they don't get a lot of attention from girls. The reason is because they have built a good physique, right? They have a lot of muscle mass, but they have not built the aesthetic V-taper physique. If you build the aesthetic V-taper physique, think about guys like David Lade or guys like Alex Eubank. That is what is attractive to women. The bodybuilder, just as big as possible physique often isn't that attractive to women, and it's not like a cope or anything like that. That's honestly just the truth. Girls would rather have someone that is kind of they have a V-taper physique. They're strong, but they're lean. They don't look too bulky. That's just a fact. That's been the most attractive physique ever, and it's scientifically backed up. So it has science behind it. It's been studied, right? You want to focus on building a wide back. This is extremely important. Big shoulders, and a broad chest. Remember those 3 muscles. So this is a little illustration I put together to help you. Broad chest, big shoulders, and a wide back, right? So specifically the lats. The lats are extremely important for the V shape because that's the side of the V, as you can see in the illustration. As I said, this is the most scientifically attractive body type. But there are some other aesthetic muscles in addition to those 3. They are abs, of course, right? Traps, so you need to have a big neck, because if you have a skinny neck, you will look much worse, even if the rest of your physique looks good. And big arms, of course, right? Arms are one of the most visible muscle groups in your entire body. So for the routine, push-pull legs build a V-taper effectively. In fact, push-pull legs builds a V-taper almost automatically. I noticed that when I started with a PPL split, without even thinking about it, I already started to build a V-taper physique, right? But of course we still have to focus on certain muscles to make it more effective, right? You want to push hard in these exercises. For wide back, do pull-ups, especially wide grip pull-ups. I avoided pull-ups for a long time. Don't avoid pull-ups. They're difficult, but they're worth it. Lat pull-downs is especially good for lats. For big shoulders, do overhead press, of course, and lateral raises, especially chest-supported lateral raises, are good for that medial head of the delt. The medial head is the side of the delt, and so when you grow that is especially useful for your V-taper because it directly contributes to width, right? But don't forget the rear delt, of course. So there's another little illustration. There's the posterior deltoid, the medial deltoid, and the anterior deltoid, parts of the shoulder. For a broad chest, incline press and chest dips. These work too with like the most important part of your chest for getting like a big, broad superhero chest. That is the upper chest. It's important to get that upper shelf because that will make it look more distinct. Even if you have like a big chest but like a small upper chest, it won't look as good. But if you build up that upper chest, you get an extra level of separation that really makes your chest look a whole lot bigger. And dips are important because they work the lower and the outer chest, right? And so that directly makes your chest look more broad when you work those parts of the chest, right? When you do dips. So do those. Those are the most important exercises for chest. The V-taper feeds on heavy compound lifts. I want you to remember this. The V-taper feeds on heavy compound lifts. Lifts that are not isolated, they work multiple muscles, they require a lot of stabilizer and support muscles, will really, really, really help the V-taper. So make sure whenever you're working those muscle groups, you're trying to do heavy compound lifts. Here's some common mistakes I see. First of all, not keeping a well-rounded routine. Even though I told you to focus on specific muscle groups, you still need to make sure your routine works all the other muscle groups as well. Basically what I'm saying is you want to focus extra hard on those muscles, but you want to keep in all the other muscles, right? So you still have to work legs, you still got to work all the other, parts of your arm and your upper body. You need to make sure you're not leaving anything out because anything you leave out will come back to bite you. It'll look like awkward and undeveloped later, even if you do build a V-taper. So make sure you have a well-rounded routine that you're doing. Number 2, using poor form. It's very tempting to ego lift and try and push as much weight as possible, and sometimes that can be good, going like really heavy, but you want to make sure that you have good form. The rule of thumb here is do as heavy a weight as you can for good form. Don't sacrifice on form because good form throughout the entire range of motion of the movement will contribute most to growth, right? Even if it's lower weight, if you keep good form and you keep it slow and controlled and you make sure you're working the right muscles, then the muscles will grow better. That's just a fact. And number 3 is not progressing, right? So you need to make sure you're progressive overloading in all of these. An example, and one I see people not progressing in a lot, are pull-ups, right? Pull-ups are very difficult to do. And oftentimes people will do, if they can't get a set of 10, they'll do a set of 10, but they won't progress upwards from that, right? You need to make sure you're progressing past just, like if you can do a set of 10, progress forward. So for pull-ups, don't just do, a set of 10 body weight. If you can do 10, try and get 8 with some weight, get the weighted belt, right? Graduate to weighted pull-ups as soon as you can. If you can't do that, then start with assisted pull-ups, right? If you can't do body weight pull-ups, start with assisted, but always try to improve. So go from assisted to body weight to weighted, right? Dips is the same way. For dips, you might have to start with assisted. You might be a bit weaker in that area of your chest, right? And then after you can do a comfortable amount of assisted dips, graduate to body weight, and then graduate to weighted as soon as you can. Even if it feels hard and awkward and you won't want to, try and graduate to that as much as you can. Try to progress, right? It isn't just enough to focus on these exercises. You have to make sure you progress in them as well. So pillar number 2 is diet. Diet is your vehicle towards your goal. This is why diet is so important, right? I feel like a lot of people in the gym kind of just ignore or forget about diet. It's very sad because diet is how you achieve your goals, your weight goals, your muscle goals, your strength goals, stuff like that. Diet is very, very, very important. You can push yourself hard in the gym, but if you haven't mastered diet, you're not going to really make the progress that you want to, right? Using diet, you will be able to manipulate your weight and your muscle mass. Number one, you need to know where you start. A V-taper is big, but lean, right? So we want to not just get super big, we don't want to get super skinny either, right? We have a specific goal, and you need to know where you start relative to that goal. Do you need to cut or bulk is the question here, right? Most of you should start on a lean bulk, even if you're not skinny, okay? So you shouldn't cut, and here's why. A lot of times, people that have higher body fat percentages, they have higher fat, want to cut because they believe that getting skinny, especially if they have that hard time losing fat or losing weight and stuff like that, right? This is especially true if they're not in the gym a lot, right? Like they're kind of like newbies to the gym. They believe that being skinny is equal to being attractive, but that is not completely true. Oftentimes, in order to get an attractive physique, it's not enough just to diet down, right, and be skinny. That's kind of like what girls do. Girls are obsessed with being skinny. We're not. We're men. And so muscle mass is important. And the fact is, if you're in a calorie deficit, it's extremely hard to gain muscle mass. It's almost, I believe it's impossible if you're in a deficit. Maybe not impossible, but it's extremely hard, right? And so if you're going to build up the muscle mass required for a V-taper, you need to be bulking in some way. That is why even if, let's say you're starting out with 20% body fat, something like that, maybe even a little bit higher, you shouldn't immediately try to cut down to get the slim waist, right? Instead, you should go through a period where you go in a lean bulk. That means in a surplus, but from clean foods, not junk food. Gain some more weight, even if you retain some of that fat, right? And you'll feel a bit like shit. And then after you kind of hit your weight goal, after you feel you've built a good amount of muscle mass, then you can cut down and then it looks even better. Whereas if you had just tried to cut at first to get skinny, you would be skinny, you'd have the slim waist, but your muscles wouldn't really be that big. You wouldn't have that really good V-taper look. Does that make sense? Now there are some of you, by the way, that should go on a cut, and you will know if you need to go on a cut, right? You'll be like dramatically overweight, and you'll be like, okay, I really need to lose weight. If that's you, then it's okay to go on a cut. Go on a cut for a short period, get to a somewhat lean point, and then go on your lean bulk. Step number 2 for diet is to track towards your goals. First of all, find your maintenance calories. And to do this, your maintenance calories is the amount of calories your body burns, your body needs rather, in a day in order to not go up in weight or down in weight. Look up calorie calculator in Google or use MyFitnessPal, which is what I use. Put in your information and it will automatically calculate your maintenance. It'll give you an estimate for your maintenance. Then, once you know your maintenance, write it down and eat 200 to 300 calories less if you're cutting, or 200 and 300 more per day if you're bulking. Now let's say you're like me and you have a really hard time dieting, right? Your body's stubborn. If you don't gain or lose weight, right, depending on your goals, after a week of consistently eating in your deficit or your surplus, increase your surplus or your deficit by 100 calories, right? So an example for me is I was eating 3,000 calories to try to bulk, but I wasn't gaining any weight, and so I had to increase, and now I'm eating over 4,000 calories a day, and I'm finally bulking. So that's just my body, right? We're all different, we all have different genetics. For both cutting and bulking, eat a high protein diet, right? You need 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. This is, more protein is better, equals better, always, no matter your goals. Get the rest of your calories from carbs and fats as you prefer. I don't really think about it as long as I am achieving my calorie goals and I'm getting like a pretty good amount of carbs. I don't really care the carb to fat ratio. I think this is recommended. It's 50% carbs, 30% protein, 20% fats is kind of recommended. You're not going to think about it. That's too complicated. I understand. It's too complicated for me. You're not going to think about specific percentage ratios, right? If you want a good looking physique, get them from clean sources. You do not want to bulk up and then look like shit because most of it's going to fat because you ate shit food, right? Your body is a reflection of the inputs you provided. If you eat shit, if you eat a shit diet, you're going to look like shit. That's just a fact, right? The body keeps the score. Here's an easier method than all of that. You can discard all of that dieting information. Download a diet tracker like MyFitnessPal. I love MyFitnessPal. I'm not sponsored by it or anything. It's just like the best thing ever, right? Download it, set up an account. It'll tell you your maintenance. It'll tell you your surplus, the amount or deficit that you need to eat, your calorie goal per day, and you can log literally any food. You can log all of your meals. Super easy, super convenient. I highly recommend it. It does all the math for you, basically, right? And then just log in every day, log all your meals as you eat them. Number 3, you need to stay consistent if you're going to do this dieting thing. Track daily. This is important, right? Whatever you track is constantly present in your mind. You will think about it all the time, and you will be more likely to achieve that goal. Weigh yourself first thing every morning. This is very important, especially if you have weight goals. This is extremely important. Weigh yourself first thing every morning before you have any fluids in you, before you have any food in you, and log that into MyFitnessPal or whatever diet tracker you prefer to use. Log all of your meals, right? And take frequent progress pictures so you can track your journey and see changes as they happen. Now, this is going to feel inconvenient to do because it is a bit inconvenient, but after like 3 days of doing it, you won't even think about it. It'll be easy. Trust me, I know it's annoying, but you have to do it. The more that you track, the better that you do. I've learned this through my years of trying to set and accomplish goals, running into problems and overcoming them. The more you track, the better you do. If you don't track, you probably won't achieve the goal, right? So I know it's annoying, but you have to do it. And if you fall off your, diet, because, I know it's difficult, right? It's very, very difficult to stay consistent. Avoid going into a downward spiral, right? Don't beat yourself up. Get back to being consistent as fast as possible. A lot of people fall into the trap of, getting emotional and being like, oh man, I can never do this. I fell off. I've been inconsistent for 3 days. I haven't eaten right in 3 days or a week. I can't do this. As soon as you realize, as soon as you catch yourself, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the horse as fast as possible. This is the best way to, really build good consistency is getting a little bit better every time at correcting your mistakes. Number 3, the third pillar is mindset, right? Who we end up becoming is often just a reflection of our internal state, and that's a fact. Your identity controls who you end up becoming, who you are in the present, who you will be in the future. What you have to realize is that nothing changes if nothing changes, right? This is the mindset that you have to have whenever you feel resistance to things you don't want to do, but you know you should do, or you want to fall back into old patterns. You don't want to change up your routine to make it more likely to get a V-taper, right? You don't want to put in the extra hard work. And I understand that. But nothing changes if nothing changes. You can watch a million YouTube videos on how to get a V-taper, how to get a better physique. You can watch tons and tons and tons of content and learn a bunch, but nothing changes if you don't change the fundamental habits and the things you do, your routine, the effort that you put in on a day-to-day basis, right? You need to, if you expect to achieve some result, you expect to see some change in your physique, your life, it's not going to happen unless you actually change the stuff you do in your daily life. Does that make sense? So anytime you feel a resistance to doing something, anytime you feel like you're demotivated or you don't want to do the hard work, just remember this phrase, nothing changes if nothing changes. You can't expect results if you don't change something about your life, right? So that's the mindset that you need to have. And you will have to work extremely hard, I'm not going to lie to you, right? And it's going to feel actually much harder than the work that everyone else has to put in. That's just the nature of our perception, right? Whenever we work hard and we have to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, it's naturally going to seem a bit like unfair. It's going to seem like other people don't have to put in as much effort as you do in order to get the results, right? And sometimes that's true. Sometimes genetics screw us over, or we have some obstacle that other people don't. But it doesn't matter, right? Whether it is legitimately unfair or seems unfair, you are going to have to work extremely hard. Expect to feel like you're going to have to work harder than everyone else around you. Expect that, right? But even if you feel that, it's all a part of your transformation. It's all a part of your arc, right? Your training arc. And here's the thing about hard work. Hard work doesn't actually have to be hard, because oftentimes most of the effort is just in your head. And if you win the mental battle, it actually becomes way, way easier, right? There are some people, you know how there are some people who just magically can do hard work and it seems easy to them? They have won the mental battle. You need to win it as well. If you win the mental battle, the physical battle becomes easy, right? So win the mental battle. And here's the thing, right? This is you on the left, and this is you on the right with a V-taper. The only difference between you in the present with a subpar physique and you with a V-taper is the guy on the right said yes to more hard work. It's not that it was easier for him or that he didn't feel a resistance to it, right? We all feel like hard work is hard, it sucks. But the person who gets results, the best version of us, simply said yes to more hard work. They simply said, yeah, okay, I'll go the extra mile. I'll, do the extra rep. I'll put in extra effort. I'll implement what I learned in the YouTube video that I'm watching. You need to stop complaining, stop saying this is hard, stop procrastinating, stop staying in your comfort zone, and stop avoiding discomfort. Instead, start saying this is easy, this is more powerful than you think. Start enjoying hard work, trying to find enjoyment in stress and hard work. Start seeking challenge, start going until failure, until you can't anymore, pushing yourself to your limits, and start going the extra mile. If you embody all of these things, if you begin doing all of these things, even at like a small level, you will see incredible results. Also, I want to talk about changing your identity, right? The reason that you feel that difficult things suck so bad, whereas other people, it kind of comes naturally to them, being able to work out extremely hard, get results, make a bunch of money, have a bunch of success, get a bunch of women, speak to a bunch of women, and pull a bunch of women, is that your identity is not of someone that can do that, and their identity is someone that can do that. And that's just your mental framework. That's just how you view yourself, right? And so a lot of times, in order to get the results and make effort easy, you need to change your identity, right? That's a key part of your mindset, right? So instead of identifying with the guy that says, I don't want to work out today, right? You're in bed and you say, I don't want to work out today, when you know you have to work out. Imagine that in that scenario, you're in bed on your phone, it's time to work out, but you don't want to, that you just said to yourself, I am the kind of guy that works out at this time and I have a good workout and I do it every single day. Imagine you just said that instead of saying, I should do this, say, I do this. You will automatically put the phone down, get on your gym clothes, and go to the gym. That is the power of changing your identity. It removes all of the friction between you and the difficult task. I also want to speak about killing your emotional self. I use this to do difficult things that I otherwise couldn't have out of fear or, just being lazy or some shit like that. Anytime there's work in front of me that I know I have to do, or a hard workout that I know I have to do, or a woman that I know I have to approach, right? Instead of trying to make myself feel better about it, right? Instead of like trying to be comfortable and like, you know, sort of like do some talk to myself to make myself feel a bit more comfortable doing it, I just kind of switch off my emotional self. So I switch off the emotional part of my brain, and I just say, no, you're just you're gonna go do it, and you're not gonna be emotional about it. So if I have a bunch of hard work in front of me, or actually a better example for this video is a workout. If I have a hard workout in front of me, a leg day that I know I have to do, instead of me saying, man, I know I really should do this, but I don't want to, I know that's going to be too difficult if I try to argue with myself. So instead, I just switch off my emotions. I just say, I'm just going to go do it. And I'm not going to feel anything while I do it. And that works every time. So, to conclude, master all 3 pillars: shape, diet, mindset. I drew you a little thing at the bottom there to kind of illustrate. And if you have all 3 of these pillars, you will achieve a V-taper physique. All it takes is essentially living under those 3 pillars for a specific amount of time, and the results will naturally come to you. They'll flow to you because you have mastered those 3 pillars. If you want a refresher, go watch the video again, right? And make sure you implement the information in this video, because I know a lot of people they'll watch a video like this and they will kind of nod their head and receive the information, but they won't really implement the information in the video. And you're just doing yourself a disservice, right? So think about what you learned in this video, maybe write out a couple ways that you could implement it into your daily life or routine to get you 1% closer to getting a V-taper physique. Goodbye, thank you for watching.